And our guest for this hour, national trial attorney Michael Jaafar, is with us. Michael, good to see you. We are hearing the instructions about you can't use this evidence for prior bad acts as propensity to show that this defendant did something in accordance with what she did in the past. They're mentioning Aruba, that the angry way that she acted, according to these witnesses, is not evidence of a crime, just can be used for motive or state of mind. How important is her state of mind in this case, in your opinion?
I think her state of mind is everything in this case, because we know that she was at the scene of the crime, right? That's not in debate. We know that she was there. We know that she dropped them off. That is not in debate. I think this is very, very, very important. And I think that if, this information and this type of evidence would absolutely clarify questions that the jury undoubtedly are having. I mean, it's more relevant than a conspiracy, which is just a bizarre, crazy, in my opinion. Now, I feel offended by the lead up to this case by the defense, and I feel a little bit hoodwinked. But this evidence, I think, is directly relevant, and I think it's very prejudicial to Karen Reed.
Oh, no, you say hoodwinked, Michael Jaafar. You've been watching this trial every day of those 31 days now. Tell me more about that. What did you expect to maybe come out in closing arguments or at the end of the evidence?
I feel very hoodwinked, and I'll tell you why. Defense attorneys, they use the media to spotlight and to bring up the specter of conspiracy. They brought it up. They spent, since last March, so over a year, they've been telling people there's a conspiracy, there's a cover-up. The prosecution had the case for 7-8 weeks. The defense had the case for 2 days. They never brought up a single witness to prove a conspiracy, right? The people protesting on the courthouse steps were not protesting because it's impossible for the blunt force trauma of a car going at 25 miles an hour to kill a person. That's not why they were protesting. They were protesting because they were lynched up they were ratcheted up by the defense to say there's a cover-up. That's why they were there. That's why they were protesting, because they thought there was a cover-up. They thought the Massachusetts State Police, they thought the Alberts, they thought this whole thing was a conspiracy. That's why they were protesting, not because it's impossible to die from an injury of that sort, or the injuries were not consistent. That's not why they were there. So I feel hoodwinked. I feel that they spent the better part of a year and a half telling people and ratcheting up the anxiety and the specter of a conspiracy. I feel like when it was their turn to take the case, they didn't bring up a single witness to say, hey, Brian Alpert disappeared for a couple of hours that night. I didn't know where he was, right? They just cross-examined. There was a butt dial here. There was a dial. Why did you delete your phone? I feel a little hoodwinked, to be honest with you, because it was just too much. The lead-up was too much in comparison to what we saw. What we saw was a great defense, by the way. Don't get me wrong. It was a really good defense. It's the type of defense you would bring up. I just feel a little hoodwinked. I feel I came into this case waiting to see a drama, a saga, a future Netflix.
I wanted a longer defense case. That's what it is. We only had 2 days of defense witnesses. We do have to hit a break. I want to bring in our guest who is standing by, waiting, as we all are, for the jury to come back with either a note or a question in this case. They've been at it for about an hour. National trial attorney Michael Jaafar. Usually they would take probably some time to settle in, pick a foreperson, maybe talk to each other about where they stand already. What are your thoughts as we enter this now 1 hour of the Reed jury deliberating?
I think this should be a multi-day jury, and I'll tell you why. Because whether they believe in the conspiracy or not, motive is going to be challenging in this case, right? If they don't believe in the conspiracy, then she's going to get convicted easily of charges 2 and 3 because they do not require intent. When you have to decide a charge that does not require intent, juries go quickly, right? But the top charge requires intent. So if they don't believe that this was a conspiracy, if they dispense of that quickly, then this will be a multi-day jury on the top charge on murder 2. If they believe in the conspiracy, which would just shock me to my core, but if they believe in that, this will be a shorter jury, because then you don't convict of any charges and you just come back in a day or a day and a half. So I'm looking to see how quickly they come back. As making a prediction, a fun prediction as to whether they will ask notes about the jury instructions, I think they're going to ask questions probably related to the testimony of the children, because that to me is the most sensitive. If you're gonna lead into a conspiracy, you want to know a little bit more about what that daughter, the adopted daughter for John O'Keefe, said when she testified about Karen Reed. And so that's what I'm going to predict, that might happen.
You know, those notes and those questions, they sometimes give us insight into what the jury is thinking, what they are struggling with there inside of the courtroom. So no notes yet, no questions yet. We have learned from our team that's there on the ground that in about an hour at